Maybe we can stream to multiple locations. There we go. How's everyone doing tonight? I hope everyone is well. Love that. There we go. So before we get into this, guys, let's do a little energy work. So if you're tuning in, thank you for tuning in. And if you're catching the replay, comment replay so we know, please. So this energy technique is very simple. Probably heard it before, but we're going to clap our hands together, rub them real fast, and slowly, very slowly pull them apart. Now, take your hands, line them up with these little lines right here. Just like that. Now bring this to your heart. Now, we're going to open the fingers like this. So the pinkies and the thumb are still touching, but everything else is open. We're just going to hold that on our heart. That loving, good energy in. Feels amazing. Oh, I love it. Love it, love it, love that energy. Okay, guys, so it doesn't look like he is going to be able to make it at the moment, or we'll just get into it. So today, guys, we're actually going to be studying one of Crowley's books. Let's see if I can share my screen here. So this book is the 777. And what this book, from what I've read about it, is it's all kind of an attempt to synthesize the data of mysticism and comparative religion. And they do a pretty good job getting into this. The mutual totalitarian of subcontraries, but in the affirmation of contraries. So one of the things it's talking about right here is something very important: paradox. In magic and life, full of paradoxes. How do these two opposing forces meet? And where they meet, instead of friction, can there be harmony? And in here, there's so much in this book to unpack. But let's look at these right here. The principal source of our tablets have been the philosophers and traditional systems we referred to above, also among many others. These people here, the Chinese classic, the Quran, all of this information they tried to compile into this book. The Book of the Dead is a very, very deep read. And in that book, there contains a ritual called drawing down the moon. That was one of the first rituals that I myself performed. And it was very powerful and very opening to the feminine aspect of my own nature. I embodied the goddess or the divine mother, even as a man. And it brought me more acute awareness of my own intuition and the feminine nature of my own being. True interpretations are but was forbidden to use them. So, and really, like all the secrecy around magic and mysticism and the occult is no longer needed. And for that, I am profoundly grateful because there was a time when it was needed to know, to will, to dare, and to keep silent. That was added to the witch's pyramid around the burning times. Because if we have the magic, we work the magic. There's not really a choice there. I am compelled to study these things. I have to, I want to, I crave it. It's one of the things that I find most relaxing. And in my own journey, I can attest that it wasn't, what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't, I want to use easy. It wasn't easy until I learned that it was easy. See, there's a paradox right there. An incredible archeum is an archeum that cannot be revealed. It is simply bad faith to swear a man to the most horrible penalties if he betray. And right there, that does give me a great respect for this book. And I would like to say this to any spiritual seeker that may have come across this recording. If someone, a master, a teacher, what have you, is telling you that you need to swear fealty to this particular thing, and it resonates with you, then by all means do. But be careful and mindful of the type of oaths that you swear to. Be mindful of what it is that you're actually being asked to do. Because some of these oaths can extend multiple lifetimes. But that's a show for another time. And I would say find a teacher that resonates and speaks the similar language as you. You need a teacher that can articulate these teachings in a way that A, makes sense, and B, helps you to ground it in practicality. Because there's no point of studying the mysteries of the universe if we can't practically apply them to our lives, right? That's how I view it. And I always try to see where I can understand from a scientific standpoint these more deeper mysteries. Let's see, it's simply bad faith, penalties, and take him mysteriously apart and confide the Hebrew alphabet to his safekeeping. Right there. The Hebrew alphabet. If you really want to study the esoteric, it's going to be vitally important to learn your alphabet, especially the Hebrew. There is much, much gold to be obtained there. And I love the Hebrews and the way that they read and study their scriptures and that, because they don't just read the words, they read each syllable. In many cases, you can say that each syllable is a frequency that when they come together, they make the whole more clear. The Rosicrucians manuscripts are very, very deep. And if you're not familiar with the Rosicrucians, they are a very fascinating study. You can go on YouTube and look up Agrippa's Diary. That channel does a fascinating deep dive into all things mysticism and very Rosicrucian from the Rosy Cross. The secrets of the adept are not to be revealed to men. We only wish they were. When a man comes to me and asks for the truth, I go away and practice teaching the differential calculus to a bushman. I swear the former only when I have succeeded with the latter. So if we are going to seek the truth, we come to someone, say, I want you to tell me the truth. They can't. Just like every time I've had a student come to me and ask me to teach them or give them magic, I cannot give you what you already possess, my friends. I can help you see it. I can help you feel it. I can help you learn how to use it. But you already possess it. The only thing that you're needing is awareness of it. And the best way to get that awareness is by doing it, by practicing it. Let's see what else we got here. And it's the same if there's any type of quest or question of the gods or God. We are able to have a direct communication with gods, with deities, with spirit. And in that direct communication, we are able to experience truth, or what many of the mystics call gnosis, a sudden revealed truth within our own being. And if it was any wish that I could wish for the world, it would be that. I wish that the entire world, every single person on this whole planet, knows and embodies their truth, because it is the truth that sets us free. Let's see here. The priest, to propagate their local fetish, would flatter him with the title of creator. Philosophers with a wider outlook would draw identities between many gods in order to attain a unity. Time and the gracious nature of man have raised gods as ideas grew more universal. Sanctarism has drawn false distinctions between identical gods for hometical purposes. I'm not sure what the word hometical means. But throughout all cultures, we can see that all the cultures have a pantheon of deities that they worship. And they all overlap. There are a ton of similarities between them all. And in that, we need to understand who it is that we're talking to, who it is that we're invoking or evoking when we're doing ritual work. And if we're wanting to call to the source, the creator of, the creatrix of all things, then just call it by that name, because it is known by that name and many others throughout the ages. And if we're looking for a specific lens for that energy to communicate with us through, then we would turn to a particular deity. For an example, if we were looking for the lens of love, what it means to really embody the essence of love itself, Aphrodite comes to mind. If we're looking for knowledge, Thoth comes to mind, or Hermes. These deities are lenses that source can be looked at and communicated with and through. Thus, where shall we put Isis, favoring nymph of corn as she was, as a type of motherhood, as the moon, as the great goddess earth, as nature, as the cosmic egg from which all nature springs? For as time and place have changed, so she is all of these. And that demonstrates what I just said. The female aspect, we're communicating with Isis, right? Well, Isis, the embodiment of the universal mother, was also at one point in time a maiden. And as she is the mother, she is also the crone. So there's the three main aspects: maiden, mother, and crone. And as the maiden can be like a little nymph, wood nymph. They're very sensual. They exude sensuality and sexuality, and they're very nature-based and very, very focused in the present. And then from that stage, eventually they will wind up pregnant and move into the transition to the stage of motherhood, which then they would care for their young, raise their young, and after their young was raised, they'd move into the transition of crone, where their time is now more past, and the present time is more focused on the offspring with the guidance of the elder. You see this very much in shamanic culture and how they move about and transition from the different aspects and different times in life. Love that. What of Jehovah, the testy senior of Genesis, the lawgiver of Leviticus, the phallus of the depopulated slaves of the Egyptians, that jealous king god of the times of kings, the more spiritual concept of the capacity only invented when all temporal hope was lost? Hope is very important. So if we were to have no hope, would anything get accomplished? No, we need that hope. And it is through connecting with some type of higher power or something that we feel is greater than ourselves that we are able to cultivate that hope. That medieval battleground of the cross-chopped logic, that being stripped of all its attributes in assimilation to Brahma and the absolute of the philosopher. Talking about that absoluteness again. So in philosophy, there is an absolute. That's it. It's the absolute. There is no more breakdown or definition than that. And the Freemasons call this the grand architect of all of this design. And all of these different types of concepts play into the fact that they're just ways that we can connect and commune and communicate with Source, with divinity itself. And now we're getting into Satan. Satan again, who in job is merely attorney general and prosecutes for the crown, requires in all times that the obligatory attaching to that functionality in the eyes of the criminal classes, and it can becomes a slander. Does anyone really think that any angel is such a fool as to try to gall the omniscient God into injustice to his saints? Why would he? Like, seriously. We know that Source is all powerful, all knowing. Why would we waste the time to do that? Why would an angel waste their time to do that? It doesn't really make much sense that they would. However, it does make sense that that angel would introduce a process of choice so that the grand design can really be the grand design. Because if we didn't have choice, if we couldn't choose good from bad, how would we know what we were doing? How would we know that we have a good choice? How do we know we have a bad choice? Satan or the devil's job is merely to understand and give choice. And as we make our choices through life, they either take us forward or help keep us stuck. And once we realize that we're stuck, we can make a different choice that helps move us forward. And in that is growth and expansion. And that, my friends, is what a lot of this book is about, growth and expansion. Then on the other hand, what of Makak, that form of Jehovah denounced by those who did not draw a huge profit from his rites? What of the savage and the Morris Jesus of the evangelicals, cut by their petty malice from the gentle Jesus of the Italian children? How shall we identify this thermomagic Shivantist of Matthew with the metaphysical logos of John? In short, while the human mind is mobile, so long will the definition of all our terms vary. And this is talking about to the fact that as long as we're here in the physical, we're going to come up with various different ways and reasons to support those ways. And that right there to me is the very fact, the facet of creation. We are designed to create, and we are given all of this energy, and we can literally use it to create anything. We have created so many wonderful stories, so many dramas, so many plays, songs, ballads, all kinds of things to help us explain the energy that we live in. But is it necessary to settle on something? Bad rules are better than no rules at all. Now, right here, I would disagree with that quite a bit, actually. Because a bad rule is not going to get you anywhere. Whereas if you do have no rules, you're free to go wherever you would like. Now, in that doesn't mean that you don't have any consequences for your actions. If we had no rules at all and you went and killed somebody, you're going to feel something about that. And more importantly, the people around that area or involved in that experience are going to want to feel safe. So rules I look at this more as like a container. In this container, we're going to function this way because it creates harmony instead of chaos. And in that harmony, everyone within this container may grow, prosper, and expand. That, to me, is what life is all about. How can we grow? How can we prosper? How can we expand? And not just in material ways, but in every facet of life. We may then hope that our cities or critics will aid our acknowledged feebleness, and if it be agreed that much learning hath made us mad, then we may receive humane treatment and a liberal allowance of rubber cores in our old age. Hmm. And if it be agreed that much learning hath made us mad, that is very true. There are many people that I've read about and talked to myself personally that picked these works up and put them down because they thought they were going mad. Because it really did expand their mind and help them to see the unseen. And my friends, once you see the unseen, there's no not seeing it. Isn't that interesting? Because once we have that awareness, we don't go back into unawareness. In fact, the very opposite happens. Once we start to cultivate and gain awareness, the very thing that we want is more of that. We want more awareness so that we can then expand ourselves. This next section is very interesting to me. I love the tree of life. The tree of life is the skeleton on which the body of truth is built. The juxtaposition and the proportion of its parts should be fully studied. Practice alone will enable the student to determine how far analogy may be followed out. Again, some analogies may escape a superficial study. The beetle is only connected with the sign Pisces through the tarot trump, the moon. The camel is only connected with the high priestess through the letter Gamel. And if we look at the tree of life and we overlay the human body over it, we will see many similarities and we will see many distinctions. And when you're first coming to occult studies and practice the esoteric, one of the fundamental things that we really want to understand is how the body functions energetically. Esoteric tells us that. It's the study of the energetic functions of the body. And when we practice these things, we gain an incredible amount of awareness of the world, ourselves, and everything in it. The first step to this is can be kind of scary. The way that I was initiated into this is I was told to imagine I was dead, that I died. And no matter how many different ways I imagined it, there was always someone or something aware of the fact that I was imagining it. That is the very first part or process of the inner alchemical work. And that's where I learned about this practice that made my conscious mind so acutely aware that it was being observed. And it was challenging for a while. It took me about 6 or 7 try months before I was able to actually really connect the fact that I was observing myself. And that in itself was hugely powerful in the fact that in the observer state is non-duality. There is no good or evil. There's simply experience. And whatever we label the energy as happiness, peace, joy, anxiety, depression, whatever label we give that energy, it is just energy for us to have that experience. That's one of the profound things that these type of teachings and lessons teach us. And every part of the body is correlated to a specific part on the tree of life. Since all things whatsoever, including no thing, may be placed upon the tree of life, the table could never be complete. it is already somewhat unwieldy. We have tried to confine ourselves as far as possible to a list of things generally unknown. It must be remembered that the lesser tables are only divided from the 32-fold table in order to economize space. In the 7-fold table, the entries under Saturn belong to the 32nd part of the large table. So what we're talking about here is we're actually breaking down the body. The table is the body. The lesser tables are the limbs, the extremities. And the 7-fold table is talking about the central column, the 7 chakras. Under Saturn, right here is one of the biggest clues, guys. Saturn is also connected to Satan. So in astrology, you want to look at your Saturn return when you have or when that's going to come up, you're going to have a challenge to overcome. You're going to have a piece of you that is part of your journey. This is where your growth and expansion can really, really explode, provided that you are aware and ready to meet and face the challenges that you might find there. We have been unable for the moment to tribulate many great systems of magic. The 4 lesser books of the Lemegeton, the system of Abraham, if indeed is qualopathic, ramifications are susceptible of classification. Once we follow below the great and terrible demonic triad, which are under the presidency of the unutterable name, the vast and comprehensive system shadowed in the book called the Book of the Course of the Forces, interwoven as it was for the tarot, being indeed, on one view, a little more than an amplification or practical application of the Book of Thoth. Right here, we're talking about the Book of Thoth and the Book of Enoch, great books to read. And Abraham is a great and powerful mage. In fact, I actually have his Grimoire, which is one of the topics I'd like to get into on the show, guys. And interwoven with the tarot. So if when we study the tarot, I really find that to be quite fascinating relating to astrology and how the different aspects of that, of the energy there, relates to our physical body. And in that, studying the symbology in the tarot helps us to understand not only ourselves, but the function, the energetic function of our inner nature, so that we can then better utilize that and bring our mind and body together to live a more holistic life. And in combining all of these works, it was greatly hoped that future scholars and students would be attracted to it so that we could keep it growing, keep it flowing. But we hope that the present venture will attract scholars from all quarters, as when the wounded Satan leaned upon his spear, forthwith on all sides to his aid was ran by angels many and strong, and that in the course of time a far more satisfactory volume may result. Bringing all of this, if you've ever studied anything esoteric in nature, it can be quite challenging. And it can also feel, many that I've known have come to this practice, this study, through painful means and traumatic means as a way to help them understand their experiences themselves and why something like that may have transpired. That was my case. Even as a flower unfolds beneath the absent kisses of the sun, so will this table reveal its glories to the dazzling eye of illumination. Symbolic and barren as it is, yet it shall stand for the athletic student as a perfect sacrament, so that, reverently closing its pages, he shall exclaim, May that of which we have partaken sustain us in the search of the quintessence, the stone of the wise, the sum bonus, true wisdom, and perfect happiness. So mote it be. Right here, what we're talking about is what's called the Philosopher's Stone. And thanks to our lovely modern technology now, we actually know that this is the real thing. The stone itself is actually a powder. Um, the stone, the powder, monofilament gold. And this powder is said to have many, many miraculous healing benefits. And my friends, I am at the part in my journey where I am ready to make my stone. And guess what, guys? I also have the instructions on how to make it. So if anybody would like that book, you just comment book in the comments and I will send you the free PDF. It's called The Alchemical Key. And here we find the Tree of Life. As you can see, each one of these Hebrew letters corresponds to a specific name. When that name is used in ritual or intonation, we are connecting to that particular sphere. So we have just a basic breakdown. Here is the very top source, and that energy is being channeled down into these different pathways, culminating into the physical right here. Malkuth. This arrangement is the basis of the whole system of this book. Besides the 10 numbers and the 22 letters, it is divisible into 3 columns, 4 planes, 7 planets, and 7 palaces. So these numbers are kind of important. We got 22, that's the master builder right there. We got 3, that's communication. We got 4, there's balance. 7 and 7, those are very powerful numbers. Now we have a table of correspondence. So we have the Hebrew names of numbers and letters. So this is Anin, Aninsiaf. Then we have Kether, Kokman, Binya, Chist. And these are all different names that we can utilize in our rituals, in our meditations, in our practices to help us connect to a specific point on the tree of life. And the scale key, the reason the numbers really help us because they tell us the frequency of that. So if we want to talk about leadership, yeah, well, there's Kether. Want to talk about duality? Kokma. Communication? Flow? Binya. As you can see as we go on. And then there's understanding the English correlation. So here we have nothingness, no being, or more scientifically put, we have 0-point consciousness. And then we start to fractal out, very important, fractal out into the specific frequencies. That is a very fascinating study. Right? So the heavens of Asiya. There is just so much in this book, and this one book that we could break down. And we see that we have the different spheres of the zodiac. Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sol, or the Sun, Venus, Mercury, Luna, or the Moon, and the sphere of the elements, and then breaking down into the astrological signs. So let's take the signs, for example. So these signs, all of these, come down from source, from the top, are put through the sphere of, so Sagittarius, for example, is put through the sphere of Jupiter. And then that is broken down. And as that comes into the physical, that takes a shape. And in the sky, when we look at the sky, we can see the shape of the centaur, the shape of Sagittarius. So that frequency is holding the pattern through the celestial system, and that pattern is then a concentrated energy stream for that particular frequency. It's the same with all of the signs: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo. It's very fascinating. And then this breaks down the different pillars, pathways, as well as we get into the different types of elements. When we're talking about elements, we're talking about earth, air, fire, and water, and of course, ether. So we have earth of air. We have earth of water, or water of earth. That's mud. When those two elements come together, they create something. And we have fire of air. We have fire of earth. That's clay. That's hardened. And we can use these elements to create different properties, as well as those properties will create different effects. So for an example, we're taking clay, we're putting in a kiln to make a bowl or a cup. So we're putting that through a process, and that process has an effect, ultimately, to have a bowl or a cup that we can use. That's a very simplistic look at it, but that process is the same across the board for all things. And then it starts to break down the tarot, which is very cool. And guys, excuse me, if anyone would like a copy of this book, let me know, and I'm more than happy to hook you up. And in about a week and a half, my lovely friend, Miss Sherry, Willow's Witchy Den, she's over on YouTube, guys. Go check her out. Awesome show. We are launching a Facebook group aimed at studying these exact things. The first book that we were going to be studying from is called The Three Books of Occult Philosophy, Volume 1, which is a very fascinating and deep dive. Okay? And then it correlates and corresponds to the different deities associated with the Tree of Life. Hindu deities, Buddhist meditations, Greeks, the Christians, the apostles, the evangelicalists. I don't know why I'm having trouble saying that name. It's weird. And then it breaks down to precious stones and how each one of those stones is associated with some specific entity or energy or frequency. And in studying works like this, guys, it's it makes it a lot easier when we look at deities as functions of that specific energy. And we have the magical powers associated with such. A pure number. That is very interesting. And we have more, starting to get more into the symbology here. The circle, the point, the line, the cross. Symbols are very, very important. Symbology is the highest study of magic, because when energy comes in to function in the environment, in the physical, it creates a pattern. That pattern is what our ancestors called a symbol. And by studying that pattern and contemplating on it, we gain an incredible amount of awareness of that specific function of energy, which freaking, oh, so exciting. Transcendent morality. Hmm. The Coptic alphabet. And if you get more into the deeper aspects of the esoteric, you're going to find many different types of alphabets. They come a lot. I found a lot of Latin myself, but they're all stemming from Latin or Hebrew. Okay, well, I shouldn't say all of them, but many of them do. And Arabic, the Greek alphabet, all of these things are very, very fascinating, and these alphabets are very important. The Arabic alphabet I've found particularly helpful in my own studies. Hmm. You have the typical diseases. So right here, this is talking about how if the energy is lost or imbalanced, can create these different diseases. So let's see here. Cancer. So we want to look at the numeration of the Aramaic alphabet of 50. And that would help us understand the frequency that we can use to nullify this. And let me ask you this, guys. Here's something I was thinking about. We can say our ancient ancestors didn't have, cancer, disease like we do today. Why was that? I asked myself that same question years ago, and the answer I was told was that we didn't live long enough to have them. And that never really felt right to me. That always kind of just felt like it was a cop out. I have come to understand that we had the means to heal ourselves from these diseases. And more importantly, they didn't really exist, except in extreme cases for most, because the type of technology that was utilized by our ancient ancestors ionized the atmosphere and ionized all life. It added positive ions to the environment, which then heals incredibly and very well, very fast, and very fluid. So it wasn't so much that we didn't live long enough to have these diseases, we knew how to actually heal ourselves. And there wasn't a monopoly on it because people could make money. But digressing there. And here we have another table of the elements, the letter name, the 4 rivers. The rivers are like a channel flowing from one sphere to the other. The quarters, the supreme elemental kings associated with those quarters. Then the rulers, the archangels of the quarters. Each archangel is associated to a specific quarter. The ruler of the elements of those quarters, the angels of the elements, the kings of the elemental spirits, the full 4 worlds. We have the formative world, the creative world, the archetypal world, and material world. So the formative world needs to go to the creative world. The creative world is going to make an archetype or a framework to go into the material world. And that allows energy to function in all 3 spheres, or all 4 planes, I'm sorry, so that life itself may happen. And then we have the parts of the soul. Ranak. Yeah, I'm terrible at pronouncing these. And we have the parts of the soul. We have the demon kings, the alchemical elements, and the attribution of the pentagram. So we stand up with our feet shoulder width apart and put our body in a position of the 5-pointed star. Each part, the left upper point, the right upper point, right lower point, left lower point, is associated with a specific entity, with a specific spirit, with a specific frequency, elemental, an element. And we can use that to bring ourselves into balance. and harmonize those elements within us. For example, if you are someone who doesn't have much earth energy, and you can bring that, doing that practice will help you bring more of that energy into you, because in this lifetime you were here to learn and how to connect and utilize that and draw it into you. If you don't have much air or earth or fire or water, whatever element you are needing, you are to work with. And here's a breakdown of the court cards of the tarot with the spears of their celestial dominion, the wands, the cups, the pentacles, the swords, the 5 elements, the body functions, the Four Noble Truths in Buddhism, and the intelligence of the planets. These are very, very important to study. And guys, I know that I'm not really going deep into any of them, and that's exactly why, because each one of these could be freaking a whole series in themselves. That's how deep they are. But I do want to give you guys a brief overview of the type of knowledge that we do really possess. And I feel like it is high time that this kind of knowledge was actually brought to the people so that it could be utilized for the greatest good of all. Then we have the English correlation, which is right speech, right aspiration, right conduct, right discipline, right energy, right rapture, right recollection, in both senses of the word, right viewpoint. So right, what does that mean? I would like to tweak that just a little bit to say alignment. The alignment speech, the alignment of aspiration, the alignment of conduct, and so forth. Because when we're conducting ourselves through alignment, we're standing in our own sovereignty, our own truth. And that truth tells us that we are in the right speech, the right aspiration, the right conduct. For whatever it is in the moment that we experience is our truth. And we have the angels, the core of angels, the places of the Brahya. Blessings, all good things, snow, rain, spirit of life, angels singing in divine presence, the altar, Michael offering souls of just, milestones where mana is just for just is ground for future. Very, very fascinating. The 10 hells in 7 places or palaces. And right here, before we get into this, or if you were wanting to study this, I would suggest studying or reading Jacob's Ladder. That is a great book that talks about this descent into the different chakras when he has to overcome, where Jacob has to overcome sloth, greed, envy, lust, all of the 7 deadly sins. And the reason they say they're deadly is because if you keep going into them, you are going to die. Because they're going to keep you stuck to the point where you're not going to be able to physically function. We need to rise up through the different centers so that we can embody the wholeness of our being. That doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with having sex or eating something delicious or any of those things, but they all must be done in balance. Too much of a good thing, as they say. And now we're getting to the chakras, getting to the 10 fetters of Buddhism, the Egyptian attributes, the parts of the soul. 12 tribes, signs of the zodiac, planets ruling, the planets exalted, 12 manas of the name. And these are all different magical images of the decans or the ascendant. So a decan, when we look at astrology, we have a slice of pie, that's the house. And then each degree in that slice is a decan. That's what we're referring to. And then each one of those deacons has a description. So the ascendant, that deacon is rising, or the succendant, that deacon is descending. We have the Zodiac demons of the deacons. And don't let this scare you, please. Let's take the word demon and break that down for a moment. Or demon. That simply refers to, in this type of study, something that's never had a human life, never been physical. Can have an effect on the physical, but it's never actually lived like a mortal. So in that essence, an angel could be considered a demon. And demons aren't necessarily evil in themselves. It is just the opposite reflection of the angel. So if we have all of this light, that light is going to cast a shadow. That shadow is going to function similarly, but opposite of it, the light that is cast, that creates it. More magical images, breakdown of the different names of the different gods, the Hebrew letters, their numerical values, the different types of intelligences. And you'll see this a lot in this type of study, is that these intelligences or functions serve a very specific purpose. And when we want to work with a specific function, we need to know its name. And once we know its name, we know its power. And then we have more breakdown of the tarot. And then we have the breakdown of the human body, as well as the legendary order of beings associated with such. So respiratory systems, types, those are the elementals of the air. The cerebral and nervous systems are voices, witches, and wizards. Lymphatic system, lumors and ghosts. Genital systems, succubi or succubus. As you can see, it breaks it down into various different beings. Stomach, vampires. The stomach needs to be fed. What does a vampire want? It wants to be fed. It hungers. Libera Al Cap 1 V57 includes the statement, all of these old letters in my book are all right, but this is not the star. This is also secret. My prophet shall reveal it to the wise. In Crowley's new comment on this verse, he observes, I see no harm in revealing the mysteries of Tazadi to the wise. Others will hardly understand my explanations. Tazadi is the letter of the emperor, the trump, and he is the star, the trump. Aquarius and Aries are therefore counterchanged, evolving to the pivot of Pisces, just as in the trumps 5, 8, and 6, Leo and Libra do about Virgo. The last revelation makes our tarot attributions sublimely, perfectly, flawlessly symmetrical. The fact of it so doing is a most convincing proof of the superhuman wisdom of the author of this book to those who have labored for years in vain to elucidate the problems of the tarot. And then it gives some notable correspondence. This column may be equally well symbolized by any single entity or entry, preferably in 0. The monistic and Nephilitic conceptions are convertible. We could take these two words and turn it into yin and yang. That's what we're really talking about. The opposites, light and dark, hot and cold. And all language on this subject is necessarily feeble and hieroglyphical. It is to name that which by definition has no name. And again, trying to explain the unexplainable. And in a lot of magic and a lot of adepts, we come to the point where we realize that it just is. It is truth. And truth doesn't need an explanation. Simply just needs to be observed. And I think that is one of the most profound and beautiful things that I have ever learned in my studies. To allow the truth to unfold. So that is Crowley, guys. And let's see here. Now, getting to Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. I myself have never studied any of her works. I don't have any of her books. If anybody out there does and willing to share, I would happily take them to read them. But I have watched a little bit about her, and she's actually quite fascinating. So, from birth and family, she was born on August 12th, 1831, and now Dapino, Ukraine, into an aristocratic family with a rich intellect and spiritual heritage. And from a very early age, she displayed many psychic abilities, including visions and interest in the supernatural. Traveled extensively across Europe, the Americas, India, and Tibet, where she claimed to have studied with spiritual masters known as the Mantas or Ascended Masters. And she founded the Theological Society, and that is basically studying religions. They study religions so deeply and so beautifully that they're able to look for the similarities as well as the differences. And guys, I think it's high time we focus on our similarities instead of differences. The goal was to form a nucleus of universal brotherhood for humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, caste, chase, or color, to encourage the study of comparative religion, philosophy, and science, to investigate unexplained laws of nature and the powers latent in humanity. And that is really sums up my beliefs too. I could fall under that category of a theologian because that is what I ultimately want. I want to bring, excuse me, all of these teachings together and to benefit all of us. Why can't we all prosper? Why can't we all grow and expand ourselves in beautiful ways? So some of her major works are Isis Unveiled, Critiques of Western Religion, Dogmas, and Materialism, Ancient Wisdom Traditions, Occult Sciences, and Hidden Truth Behind the Religious Text, The Secret Doctrine, A Cosmonicist, Origin of the Universe, and Anthropologist, Origin of Humanity. Ooh, that sounds very fascinating. I'm gonna have to get that one. So the core concepts are the 7 root races, the cycles of human evolution on Earth, the law of karma, reincarnation, spiritual evolution through successive lifetimes, the unity of all life, the interconnectedness of all beings through a divine consciousness. That's very fascinating. The voice of silence, a mystical text with spiritual ahornism aimed at guiding seekers on a path to enlightenment. Influence inspired by Eastern scriptures, especially from Tibetan Buddhism. Some of the core philosophical concepts, the law of unity, all exists and is interconnected and arises from a single divine source, often referred to as the Absolute. Karma and reincarnation, souls evolve through cycles of rebirth influenced by the moral law of cause and effect. The 7 planes of existence, reality is multi-dimensional, with 7 planes of consciousness ranging from the physical to the divine. The Mahas, the masters of wisdom, highly evolved spiritual beings who guide humanity's spiritual evolution. Ancient wisdom tradition, belief that all religions are originated from a single ancient source of spiritual knowledge. Controversies, claims of psychic powers, Blavatsky claimed to have supernatural abilities, including telepathy and materialization, which led to skepticism. Accusations of fraud. The Society for Psychical Research investigated her claims and labeled her a fraud, though its conclusion was later contested. Cultural appropriations, criticized for selectively incorporating Eastern philosophies into Western esotericism. Radical teachings. Her view on the evolution of root races have been interpreted as radically heretical, leading to controversy in modern interpretations. A legacy and influence. Modern esotericism influenced the development of New Age movement, occultism, and modern spirituality or spiritualism. The Theological Society's impact paved the way for influential figures like Annie Besant, Besant, Leatherbeat, and Judah Christman. Literary and cultural influenced writers like W.B. Yeats. I've read many of his books. Aldous Huxley and H.P. Lovecraft. Never read any of Aldous Huxley, but I do love me some Lovecraft from time to time. Integration into Western spirituality. Her synthesis of Eastern and Western thought contributed to the polarizing concepts like karma, chakras, and meditations in the West. She was very big and influential in that area. And some of the key takeaways here is one of the first to bridge Eastern spirituality and Western occultism. Philosophical depth combined metaphysics, cosmology, and esoteric philosophy to create a comprehensive spiritual worldview. Continues to inspire contemporary spiritual seekers, esoteric scholars, metaphysical practitioners. Relevance in the modern spirituality. New Age movement. Her teachings resonated with the holistic, interconnected worldview of modern New Age philosophy. Human design and gene keys, the theosophical concepts, parallel aspects of the human design, especially regarding the multi-dimensional nature of consciousness and spiritual evolution. Shamanism and occult studies. Her work remains influential in contemporary occultism, esoteric shamanism, especially exploring the unseen dimensions of reality. So, my friends, thank you for joining me on this journey. And Blavatsky is really fascinating. So she's definitely someone I want to dive more into. And I hope you found this to be enlightening, educational, as well as fun. Thanks for hanging out with me. And as always, bright, beautiful souls, from my heart to yours, much love. Bye, guys. I'll see you later.